All right, Ron, I've got my focus set on you. You got me for the next hour. Let's get going.
Welcome to the Photofocus podcast. It's a Q&A show for April 2023. I'm Ron Pepper coming at you from the San Francisco Bay Area. And as almost always, my co-host is Rob Moroto. How's it going, Rob?
Hello, Ron. I'm glad to be here again. And yeah, I have missed one or two, haven't I? I'm sorry about that. I'll be
Very
sure to be
few.
more available for you.
Very few that you've missed, but every once in a while we'll have a guest host on. It's fun either way. And I just realized, man, I must have sounded really tired when I just said hello, everyone, because I was thinking about 10 other things. But as you said, Rob, the audience has us for the next while. So we've got a handful of questions from listeners.
And yes, and welcome everybody. And actually, you know what, Ron? Before we get into those questions, I got to ask, it's April. Did you do anything for April Fools? Did you fool anybody?
I didn't. I barely even knew it was April Fools. Is it just me, or is it a thing? Is it kind of a thing of the past? Are people still really into that? Maybe.
I don't know. Like I realized that after looking at all my social feeds, like I think last year and the year before, what I really liked seeing was all the April Fools marketing jokes that came out, right? Like
That
Mountain
used to
Equipment
be a
Co-op,
thing. Yeah.
right? Mountain Equipment Co-op came out with this thing where it's like, oh, we got these pants that have like 30 zippers on it, so you can have like short shorts, mid thigh shorts, knee shorts, capri shorts, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's a neat one. And I think the camera companies used to keep on doing this, where they're like, and this year we have created a left-handed camera.
Right. Yeah, that used to be a thing. I feel like in the late 90s, early 2000s, internet still new and people really went crazy with because you could put out a story like that for $0 basically on your website or whatever. So there were a lot of creative things like that. And I just feel like it's kind of gone away where
Right?
I was a little bit on the lookout for it, but not really. I never even really considered pulling any tricks. And one of the only
Well,
things I
you have
heard about it was,
kids or a
well,
kid.
that's the thing is one of the only things, one's away, but one of the only uh, things I heard about it was there was a little guy was playing a Roblox game. And at one point he was like, "Oh, this is going to be cool." Oh no, this is April Fool's. Okay, moving on. So it was just like someone built in on their Roblox game some April Fool's gag, and he just went, "Oh, okay, it's just that." Moving on. Didn't even think about it too much. Very very
Yeah.
aware, which I was very proud of. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. No,
Well,
I
should we try to do
I
something next year?
I think we should. The one that I saw that got the most boos was there was one that said uh, the Bank of Canada has just lowered all interest rates. It was just one of those like, oh, we all wish. But
Yeah,
uh,
I hate to even dip my toe in the finance and stuff because that would be ripe for those kinds of jokes, though, wouldn't it? It would be, oh, the central bank digital currency is out early. It's come get your free money. Yeah, that would be an easy one where people
oh
might
yeah,
jump onto.
definitely. No, and that like
Well,
this year for my company, we did two um, April Fools things. One was one of my photographers. He wanted to do one where he made a video about. He's like, okay, so we are now getting rid of all the things in a camera that we don't need, and we have AI now, where all you have to do is put an SD card into the mouth of your photographer. They'll blink, and your photos will be on your SD card. Here you go, instant delivery. Uh, Wipe, sanitize before using. And then the other one that we did was so there's a way now that you can virtually stage Matterports, and Matterport 3D is kind of cool. But you can digitally virtually stage them. So what we did was we put in cars into the Matterport, and we said, "Oh, hey, check out this listing. This is a 4-car condo." And so we put 2 cars into the living and dining area, one into the one in the guest room, and in the master bedroom we put in this hatchback, but it will actually house a full size F-150 if you're a truck guy, kind of thing. And we got a lot of good response from that. But yeah, I didn't see a lot of April Fool's stuff. I think,
Sounds like you did, but
I don't
you
know,
did better than any of them I've heard of. I didn't see that, but
right?
where
We're
did you
just,
put that out? Did you? I don't know if you mentioned it.
you don't follow me at all,
I do.
don't
I
you?
do.
No,
Yes.
no, Ron. Okay, no, that was on our Calgary Photos Instagram, and that's at calgaryphotos.ca because somebody else has the at Calgary Photos handle. We missed that boat, but we got
I
the
should check.
.ca one.
Maybe I only follow you and not Calgary Photos. I'll take a look, but I didn't see
Maybe,
that. So
yeah.
I just would say that is one of the better April Fools that I've heard of. Again, because I just don't see it anymore, and it's I don't know. It's good and bad. I don't mind it.
I think I think people are getting a little bit too focused on being we're serious business people, right? And not forgetting that we can have fun with this. And so I
Well,
love doing April Fool's stuff,
I
right?
do feel
And
like there's too little fun out there on social media and regular media. I feel
mhm.
like there's too much anger, maybe directed in the wrong place, maybe not. I shouldn't even just either way. It should be more fun again. So let's encourage that.
That's right. That's what the internet was made for fun.
That's
And
right. Hey Rob, we based on some comments we get, I want to ask you, what do you do for photography and why should people listen to you? I'll go next.
I love that. It's like, all of a sudden, it's like, what are your credentials? Are you
Yeah.
really, you know,
Well,
are you actually qualified to be here?
we're actually not known by, that many people. Come believe it or
No,
not,
we're
Rob.
not. No, we're
Why should
not.
and I'm being fully sarcastic. There's no reason we should be. I try to be. I like doing things like this, but it's I'm kind of a little I
Yeah,
have one foot in each camp. I kind of like to just do my own photography, but I also like to share. So yeah, for me,
no,
I've been
exactly.
doing professional photography since early 2000s, depending how you measure it, because I would do little things while I had my previous career at the same time. And then got into it more professionally over the 2000s, 360-degree photography. So I'm a little bit more on the technical side than a lot of photographers than compared to the artistic side. And I've been kind of bridging that over the last years where it was kind of cool. I got into being professional because the 360 thing just kind of worked out for me. It was a perfect
Hmm.
meld between photo gear and computers because I was really into both of those things. And it's very, again, kind of a technical kind of photography where you're just trying to get everything correct, not exactly being artistic. And then it kind of pulled me to bring out my artistic side over the years. So that's kind of like a super short version of what I do. So if people are looking for questions about just from camera settings to what the heck is what the heck are these technical terms, chromatic aberration, noise, whether, then I'm usually pretty good for
Yeah,
those kind of questions. And what about you? Tell us a
right.
little bit about
What?
your.
Yeah, like it's well. So for me, I am a commercial photographer. I specialize in architectural and interiors. I also started a company called Calgary Photos that does real estate photography, video measurements, and all that in the Calgary area. That's up in Canada, and just Calgary's in Alberta, which is like right above Montana. Um, and yeah, we got six photographers right now, and 6 photographers, 2 videographers, 4 measurement techs. It's and we service a lot of the Calgary area there, and it works out really well. But aside from managing that, I do my own commercial work as well, and you can find my commercial work at robmoroto.com. And recently, I just put out a online course teaching how to do real estate photography. That's also at
Nice.
robmoroto.com. So, and I will put a coupon code into the show notes here. So if you're interested, check it out. And that's
Cool.
me. I've been doing this
Excellent.
since what, 2009? So yeah, that's
Nice.
yeah.
Well, it's good.
Oh my
We
god, it's
give
been
a little
over
give
10
a little
years.
bit of our. I've been kind of intending to do that a little bit more in each show, and so there you go. There's a little bit about us, but you're here for the questions. People come for the questions, so first let's thank our sponsor, which is Photomatics for high dynamic range photography, something Rob and I both use, and in
Mm-hmm.
fact, well, going back to what I said about becoming professional over those years, uh, from a 360 standpoint, you couldn't light a 360. That was pretty impossible. A little more possible now as the gear and things
Mm-hmm.
get better, but still almost a deal breaker to try to rotate a camera, get a bunch of shots with the equalizing the lighting and everything. So anyway, that's where I got into HDR, was taking bracketed shots, and that helps you take, even if you're in a situation you're shooting a 360, it's almost impossible to have the same lighting all the way around. So
Yeah.
we would take brackets. And so that really helped launch me into having an actual career. And I know we should, we'll just make a real quick mention of it. We use it a lot in real estate. That's probably the biggest thing. I love to
Mm-hmm.
batch process my bracketed shots, and then I do post processing after, but everyone has their own workflows, and, but it's huge for
Exactly.
real estate. And, yeah.
Yeah.
And in
And
your course,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, no, I've got it in my course, and you can actually buy a version of my course with photomatics included, and we'll teach you how to go through all of that. So, uh, yeah, thank you,
Nice.
Photomatics,
Yeah.
for sponsoring this show and for helping me and sponsoring me as well, I guess.
It's a good example of everyone kind of helping out each other. So
Exactly.
hdrsoft.com is where you go to try that. It's free to download and try. And before we get into our questions, you know
Mhm.
what, we should jump into our questions because we're taking too long. But coming up, David Deal is coming back. We're going to have a better talk, another talk with him, because his connection didn't work last time. So we just asked him to come back. We'll just do a separate show with him. Things coming up that are, well, the eclipse is coming up
Mhm.
2024. So we want to start getting ready for that. I said a few years ago we were doing this podcast, and we were talking about the eclipse quite a bit, and I really want to make sure I go to the actual, what do you call it, where there's certain places where you get the full effect. Because
Mm.
last time I was in San Francisco, I couldn't really get away, didn't think about it, but I went downtown to see what I could see, and it was a partial eclipse there. But I got some cool
Yeah.
shots during the day of it looked like almost like a partial moon, but it was pretty neat. But I really want to go experience it, because people were saying how it was very much a profound experience to just be under that. And I don't understand why, and that's why I want to go learn why. So we'll
It was
start
really
talking
cool,
about
but
that from photography wise coming up.
yeah, do you remember? The one thing that I remember was the shadows, and it was really cool. I remember seeing like these uh, strange half moon, crescent moon shaped shadows, and it
Hmm.
was my kids pointed it out to me, and I couldn't understand what they were talking about. But the when the light went through certain objects, the shadow that was created had this certain shape to it, and it was really neat. Um, anyways, yeah, let's
Those
get
will be
into the questions
those will
here.
be some of the things that we'll start getting into as we get closer.
Uh,
Because yeah, last time was an interesting experience. This time should be even better. All right, yeah, let's just jump right in, because you know, my catchphrase is we could talk all day, but let's go to question one from Nick. From, I put parts unknown because he didn't say, and
gotcha.
he's asking, what the heck is pixel shifting? Like I see in the Canon announcement. Oh, it was the leaked Canon
Oh
information.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
that right?
yeah. I saw
Yeah.
that.
So
Yeah, I saw that.
he asked a
Let's.
question in a wonderful way by including a link that will be in the show notes, and it's a photo rumors page. It says Canon R5 will get a new IBIS high resolution to create 400 megapixel image. Okay,
Yeah.
so first of all, the way this is written is poor, so I'm wondering if it's real. You know, it was just April Fool. This came out before April Fools, though, so I don't think it's that. So
Yeah.
the IBIS, which that IBIS is the
In body image
thank you.
stabilization.
Yes. I was just going to say stabilization if I could have come up with the word faster, but it's using the fact that you can already use the floating or moving sensor to stabilize. So
Mm-hmm.
now they're using it to move it around when you, I guess, click the shutter and it'll move around slightly and get more pixels by doing so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So my understanding of it is that by shifting it uh, around, it still is going to be taking multiple images. So every time it shifts the sensor, it will take an image. Like I've got a Fuji X-T5 that has the pixel shift ability, and it takes 20 images and shifts the sensor around. And if you look at the raw images that it takes, you can't tell the difference between one shot to the other, but
Mm-hmm.
the software can. And here's a part that gets me. It's the software because it's not done in the camera. You have to have a separate third party app
Oh,
to put all these in.
huh.
Then it takes all those images and does its calculation and then spits out a higher resolution image. So with mine, let's see now. My XT5, I believe, is 40 megapixels. And once it's done spitting it out, it comes up with a 140 megapixel pixel shifted image. And that sounds great, but uh well, like when you're doing 360 images, one of the problems is that what if you have things that are moving in your image
Yep.
from the time you shoot from one angle to the next? That's going to screw it up. That's going to be a problem. And
Well, I was going to ask you
say,
how long does how long does your camera take to take those 20 shots?
okay, so there's different settings that you can use. You can use fast, which means that it just goes one after another, and that's just depending on whatever your shutter speed is, and it just goes one after the other. You can set it so that it takes it in 1 second or 5 second or 10 second intervals, but it still needs those 20 shots.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why you would do it at every 1 second, 5 second, or 10 second intervals. I haven't found a reason to do that. It just makes sense to make it all go at once.
Yeah, that does
But
seem
here's the
strange. In
problem.
fact, I was thinking it should try to take, because these are all mirrorless cameras, I assume. So I
Mm-hmm.
would think it would try to take them all within a fraction of a second
As
if possible, or just
Yeah, just as long as the no longer than the shutter speed, right? And or buffer
yeah.
speed.
Well, I guess you're going to
And
have
so
with the movement. Can think of two things. It might calculate out the movement if it has that ability, or it might also kind of have the properties of if you took a 1 second exposure, there's going to be some kind of ghosting, like a person moving through your scene with a 1 second exposure,
mhm,
depending how fast they're moving, is going to either maybe not be perceptible or be blurry. And
mhm.
so maybe if it's taking separate ones, well, there's one reason for taking them 1 second apart is that you could calculate out any movement, right?
Any movement, except so I was just in Tofino for spring break, and I tried this with a couple of scenes, and what I found was that there's two problems with the way that it works. Number one, uh, your subject matter cannot move. So me taking a picture of the ocean and landscape, uh, no, worthless because
Hmm.
any bit of wind that moves a tree or any bit of the waves, it's going to move and it's not going to work, right? So that was one. The second thing is that it has to be extremely well stabilized. Like you can imagine how little that sensor is moving when it's shifting. So if you have like I tried it on my 100 to 600 lens, fully zoomed out at 600. So any little movement would move the image, right? So that didn't work. But when I did it with my 52 mil Zeiss macro, that came out amazingly well because the subject wasn't moving. My tripod was good. The weight of the camera wasn't that much, and there was very little movement there. So the pictures came out really clear, crisp, and big. But that's it. How many times am I going to take a macro photo that I need at 140 megapixels?
Yeah, it
Not
sounds like
many.
it sounds like it's there for very specific situational photography. But now that I think
Yeah.
about it, though, when you mentioned being able to take one shot every second, that might have that ability. That reason might be to remove anything moving. So, for instance, it's been so long, so I'm not going to be able to come up with the terms very fast. But if I took a photo of if I wanted a photo of a busy street with cars
Mhm.
moving and people moving, but I wanted that photo, but I want it to be with like a post-apocalypse, like nobody on the street. I could I could already take a shot every second or every minute or whatever, and I could do that
Mhm.
for 100 shots. And even with Photoshop, I believe it's called calculations, right? I can't remember now, but there's an option in there where you
Yeah.
can stack them, and it'll go through and find all the images that don't have any moving objects in them, and then you get
Yeah. The
this. That's
mode,
an old
mean,
trick.
and average. Yeah.
It's an old trick that I mean, I tried it a long time ago. It was interesting, and I moved on or whatever. But it's already there, so maybe that's doing is that that's the way of avoiding the moving objects in your scene is by taking them
Hmm.
apart, and then it's supposed to be because what I'm talking about, I tried over 10 years ago. So by now, the those software you mentioned must have a way of figuring that out. So I'm guessing that it's all situational. So here again, we are going with it depends. Right? So you get like first, I find a little ironic that it's using the stabilization, but it has to be ultra stabilized on a tripod. I find that a little ironic because it's
Mhm.
using that stabilization system to move it around. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be one of those times where like so many questions, man, try it. If you have this on your camera, or if it's true that the R5 is getting this feature, then try it out and find the situations that it works. I just, before we move
Yeah.
on, I just wanted to mention that the R5, it says the R5 is getting this through a
A
firmware update.
firmware.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
kind of
Which
interesting.
it,
I find
I think that's completely possible because the technology is there in it. What
it
I
already
find
has the
question,
IBIS.
yeah, what I find
Mm.
questionable though is looking at this rumor. It says that it can take a 9 images of a 45 megapixel resolution and make that into a 400 megapixel image. That seems like a huge jump. But maybe that's just my Fuji envy coming out, where I have to take a 40 megapixel sensor, shift it 20 times, and still only get 140. Maybe that's the difference between a crop sensor and a full size sensor.
Well, after all, it's just a rumor, and it is very close to April 1st when it came out. So take those,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still fun to discuss. And there are a lot of cameras that already have it. I'm going to add in the show notes a Wikipedia that I just punched up that has the list of cameras that offer pixel shift already. So if anybody's interested, you can find out more there. Let's
Yeah.
move on to our next though.
And well, and
Uh,
before that, if anyone
yeah,
is out there that is an expert on pixel shifting, reach out. We want to talk to you.
yeah,
Maybe get you onto
yeah,
the roundtable.
yeah. There you go. I was thinking uh, this would be a good topic for the roundtable, so we can put that as the maybe pile.
Yeah, let's do
Um,
that.
the next one, as one of those names that I like, for some reason, Alistair from UK. I think it's more popular there, right?
Alistair. Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and this one's actually photomatics related, even though it doesn't have to be. It applies in a lot of situations. But he's asking, he was asking like he'd processed images in photomatics and then wanted to post process them, which I always recommend doing. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I do. You get your um, bracketed images and combine them and get them pretty close to what you want, and then you do the post processing somewhere in your favorite application. So he's saying, is it best to output from Photomatics as 16-bit TIFF or 16-bit DNG if I plan to further process the images. And I could stop there. I'll read the rest of the question, but
Mhm.
that's the question right there. Is it better
Yeah.
TIFF or DNG? He says, I ask because advice is to use DNG rather than TIFF output. That doesn't make sense because TIFF files can be processed as well. Is there less room? He's saying is there less information, or what's the reason basically for recommending that? I don't even know where that recommendation necessarily was. What I find again is it better to use 16-bit TIFF or 16-bit DNG? Yes, those are both great for an intermediate workflow step. So if you process your images in anything, any application, any plugin, any whatever, and you're going to further process them in something else, yes, definitely save them as a 16-bit TIFF, or if you have it 16-bit DNG, they're both going to do the job of the reason is that you're keeping max information in that file. Nothing's been lost. So as opposed to if you save as a JPEG, then even if you save it as a full quality JPEG, which every JPEG saving application will have an option of saying like
Mhm.
100%, or sometimes they use a scale of like 0 to 12. But if you max it out, it's still by the
It's
nature of JPEG it's going to be compressed in a lot of ways, in some ways.
mhm.
And so the idea is, this is just one of those great Q&A questions we kind of come across pretty often, is JPEG is an important file format
Yes.
for
It
delivery,
mhm.
right? Like you want to, whatever your workflow is, let's just say we're using Lightroom and you use some plugins like this, like Alistair's talking about. I do the same thing. You do a bunch of post processing. All that stuff happens on your 16-bit TIFF or DNG, and
Mhm.
it's all lossless. You don't,
Yeah.
if you save it,
It's
like if you go
so
out to Photoshop, sorry, I'll let you go and I'll finish my thing and
yeah.
let you go. If you go out of Lightroom into Photoshop, you have to save it and it comes back. So in Lightroom, you're doing all of this non-destructive work so that
Mhm.
nothing happens to the file. But if you go out into another application, you have to save it and bring it back. And when you do that, use a TIFF or DNG and you won't lose anything, right? And then find when you're going to export it to whatever it is, your customer or to Instagram or to whatever, that's when you make it a JPEG when you're done. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my rant. What do you say?
So okay, so I think the important thing here is for anyone who doesn't really understand what the difference is between a JPEG and a TIFF is how it calculates the information and saves it. So I like to use the information. I like to use the analogy of Battleship. Remember playing Battleship, where it's
You
like,
sank my battleship. Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it's like A1 hit miss. Okay, so essentially the way that a TIFF or a DNG would save it is like A1 miss, A2 miss, A3 miss, and so on and so forth. So that you get this really long list. Whereas a JPEG would look at it and say row A miss, row B miss. Actually, row A to D miss. And so now what it does is it just makes it a lot more computational, but it's a lot quicker. And
It forgets about all the misses, right?
right.
It
And
just
so
yeah.
what it does is it goes through and says, okay, this entire line is exactly the same. And what happens in your compression when you make a JPEG is, say you have a blue sky that goes from light gray to dark gray. Uh, a blue sky that goes from light gray
Blue.
to dark gray. Okay, that didn't make sense.
Well, that's what happens in
So you have
Seattle, Calgary, Seattle.
right. Yeah. So when you have a gradient, what it'll do is it'll say, okay, well, this line here is good and it's all the same up till here. And then next line is like, it's still this. And it gets rid of the actual individual pixels and it'll start grouping them. So the
Yeah,
more
yeah.
compressed
That's the
it is,
compression.
the yeah, the less gradients it is, the more choppiness that you get because it's grouping all of these pixels to say that these are exactly the same. And TIFF and DNG won't do that, and therefore, if you want to keep all the information and not uh, group your pixels if and lose some of the variation between each pixel, then use your TIFF and DNG, and that's why, of course, those file sizes are a lot bigger.
And
But
what Rob's describing is with the sky is why sometimes people will say, where do I get this banding in the sky? They call it banding, where you can
yeah,
see those groups that you just mentioned. And then that's usually what happens is that you either have saved your JPEG with too much compression, because you can choose how much compression, and it's a direct relationship with compression to file size. So if you need a smaller file size, you have to choose more compression or a smaller pixel size. So then we're getting into the weeds here, I guess. But when people say, where's this banding come from? I think usually it comes from either too much compression or having saved it as JPEG over and over, because it compresses it each time. So if you
yeah, it
do a few steps,
recalculates.
so if you go, okay, I'm going to do a few changes in my photo and I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it as a JPEG to save file space. Well, you're compressing it. Then you open it and do another edit and save it again. You've compressed it. You've compressed the already compressed version. So it's going to
It's like
happen
photocopying a
exponentially.
photocopy of a photocopy, right?
Yeah. Or cloning, right? What do you call that? When it's degradation and cloning. Been watching too much. I've
Uh,
been watching too much
the
Star
royal
Trek.
the royal family. No. All right. So
Was that a
there's
burn
that.
for Alistair in UK?
Hey. No, but hey, okay. So there is one thing that I have to point out, and I have to call you on, Ron.
Yep.
Alistair asked, "Is it best to use a TIFF or a DNG?" And what you said was yes.
Mm-hmm. In other words, use either one you like.
Okay, now let's go back to that. The difference between a TIFF and a DNG, from what I understand, is a DNG is like a raw file. So if you want to change your color temperature, it's not going to look. It's going to work better than if you were to change the color temperature
Yeah, but
in a TIFF.
that's the original. Yeah, that's the original. If your camera saves a DNG instead rather than raw, or if you convert your raw to DNG, yes. Once you've processed it in another application, Photoshop,
Mm-hmm.
Photomatic, and anything that saves DNG, it's not actually raw anymore. So
Okay,
that's
so
you can even
that
save
answers my question then.
you could even take a TIFF, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
applications will still allow you to save it as a raw, but once it's not raw anymore, you can't just make it raw again. so
Right,
so
that's exactly it. Once you cook a steak, you can't make it raw again.
yeah.
But then the question is, what is the benefit of a TIFF or a DNG? And I don't know. I haven't checked this. Maybe we could check it right now. Is the file size different if you export as a TIFF versus a DNG?
We different applications will probably give you different results. Plus, you have the choice of 8-bit versus 16-bit. The important
Well,
thing is that they're both lossless, and
uh huh.
they're different. What's the word here? They're different. Like, is protocol the right word? I don't think so. But there's a way. Now, listen, I'm a photographer, but I'm around software people, so I kind of can talk about this, but if I get some stuff wrong, let me know, but be gentle, because I can get stuff wrong. But the way I understand it is the important takeaways. That's usually what I do is I try to keep the important takeaway. And there's a way of creating a TIFF file that smart people made up one time. There's a way of creating a JPEG that smart people made up for a certain purpose that was important. And the same thing with DNG. And so the way it's saved, I know what you're saying is usually it's a raw file with a quote unquote wrapper. So instead of having a
Mm-hmm.
sidecar XMP file, it has those details built in the wrapper. But now, once you've processed it in another application, it's not that way anymore. So what you're doing, what the important takeaway is that you're saving a lossless. So whatever's there is still there, but
Mm-hmm.
you've already given up a couple of those advantages of raw. Which you were talking about, the white balance, you've already selected that. So
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, or for a basic answer,
Mm-hmm.
both of them are going to be good for keeping your lossless file. The pros and cons of each one, frankly, I can't really tell you. I think the TIFF file will be a little bit bigger in disk space, but that could vary as
Okay.
well. Other than
Well, I'm
that,
gonna do. Well, while we go on to our next question, I'm going to run a test in the background, and then we can
Okay.
circle back to that. And
Okay.
then before we leave, then one last question that I think we got this before was, what is the best size for you to send out your JPEGs? I remember hearing that, where it's like, is there like a minimum? Like, do you go below quality of 8 or something like that? And
Hmm.
I don't know if we actually brought it up on the show or not, but I think this is a great time to put it up there. Um, I will always put out my JPEGs at the highest resolution. And then there is a program out there, which I find is absolutely amazing. And they're not a sponsor here. I'm just plugging them anyway because they are such a great program. Is a program called JPEG Mini. And if you don't know
Yeah.
what it
Right.
is, just look it up. And what it
Mhm.
does is incredible. It shrinks down your JPEG for you really, really well. And I don't think I've ever seen another program do it this well. So shout out to them because they're great. And if they want to sponsor us or buy us a case of beer, that'd be fantastic. Uh,
Please do.
all right, that's it. I'm gonna work on this on the background, and hopefully
Okay.
I'll get.
Yeah. In fact, try see what you can come up with. I'm going to mention the photo focus question of the week really quickly. If you're
Okay.
not aware, if you're for audio listeners, and this is where I came from, I've never been a big reader of websites and things like that. I feel like if I'm sitting in front of my computer, I can't just be reading. I need to get it on audio. But other people are different. But if you're a listener, you might be interested in the question of the week on the Photo Focus website. This latest one is: do you feel the need to update your current equipment? And when you answer it, it tells you the percentages of the answers. So um, I just thought I would pass this on. Maybe I'll do this one on one more, and people can comment whether you like this in this show or not. But the question being, do you feel the need to update your equipment? And the choices: every day, just can't afford to, got 17%. Every day, just can't decide what to buy, got a small 3.5%. My choice was no, my current gear does everything I need to, 59%. So more than half the people are not worried about buying gear. I think that's pretty telling. But after I clicked on that initially, I thought, oh, I remembered two or three things that I have in mind that I wanted, that I'm kind of intending to get. So it's a little bit wrong. Um, Next one is: I am not enticed by new equipment. I am not enticed by new equipment. I could have chosen that one. It's cyclical. Sometimes I'm enticed, sometimes not. 17%. And then it says, are you serious? I have to have all the gear, but it only got 3.5%. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. If you want to participate in those, please do. Some of the recent questions are, how old is your current camera body? Let me just do that one really quickly. Really quickly, if it loads quickly, that is. My current camera body is, um, I got it during the pandemic, so it has to be under 3 years old. So over one. Okay. So over 3 years old got nearly 60%. All the other ones are pretty small, except over 10 years old got 30%. So if you want to see what other photographers and photo focus readers and listeners, what you share with them, check it out. Question of the week, you can almost always see it on the homepage. What did you find, Rob?
I am just strangely enough, I was actually looking for a uh I was actually looking for a HDR image to do the batch on. So now I should have it, and it's still thinking. Anyways, let's.
I did a couple of quick tests with that when I was initially, because I've answered Alistair already by text, and
Mhm.
so I was just curious about some of the details. And one of the things is that, DNG is kind of I think it's exclusively Adobe's thing, isn't it? I mean, they made it up. I'm not quite sure, but the some of the options are still there. Like when you have a DNG, it offers more white balance choices. And again, don't be fooled. It's not raw anymore, but it does offer more choices. I don't know if that matters, if it's just more
Mhm.
presets. So anyway, I'm sorry. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Let's due to time, let's have our last question here. Um,
Okay.
Christina, you entered that one. Did you get where she's from or no?
No, I didn't.
I
And
joked around about being from Applegate, New Jersey, but that's just because of the actress. But anyway, she says, "Are you guys okay? Listen, I don't know if people just want to promote stuff like Canon and this one, but they're sending
yeah.
links now, which is great. Are you guys getting the new auto leveling? Oh, are you guys getting the auto leveling tripod? And there's a Kickstarter link that is in the show notes to show what this is
Yeah.
about. And I'm a definite maybe. After that last question about do I want to get gear? Not really. Well, this gives me a definite maybe because I would just I don't know how long if you and I want to really discuss this or not, but I watched the little video clip really
Hmm.
quickly, and I can see going into a real estate situation and just being able to put it down and push the button and if it auto levels well, because for real estate you have to
Yeah.
be really exact, you have to get really exact. So if it
Hmm.
does that good of a job, I might just invest the 350, I think, dollars.
Is that it?
Three
Well,
the max, the taller one is 400, and it says they're going to be asking 700 later, I guess, because it's still a Kickstarter. Is that right? Um,
yeah,
but
like they've got
their
what?
backing is huge.
They've got
One
let's see now,
point almost
1.
1.8 million after look there. Well, I'll
And
do it. This is mine will be in US dollars, Rob. I'll do it. They've
yeah,
got 1.8 million nearly pledged from a $50,000 goal. So I guess it's going to go through, right?
right. Yeah, it's a Benro Benro Theta, and it's an interesting concept. Like going through the website, the things that came to my mind was okay, you don't want to put anything that has a battery into water. Number one, so
Hmm.
can you use it in a place with water, like on the beach? And that was my first question. Then the second one was, what's the other thing that can go wrong with anything that's motorized? And that is sand. So if you're again on the beach, is that going to be an issue? And they've covered it. They talk about it in there. And the only other thing, it looks like they've got the answers, and it looks like you are able to use it on the beach. You are able to use it in a desert, and the sand will not get into your tripod or the mechanical portion, which is uh, great. The only other part here that they haven't addressed for me, which is a concern, is will it work in sub freezing temperatures? Because, of course, it has a battery in it.
Hmm.
And that's the only question that they haven't asked. Because
For me,
the only time that yeah.
for me, it's one of those things where I've got at this point, I've gotten enough gadgets over my days, my years, that
Mm-hmm.
over after a while, for some reason, it just somehow fails. And this has, and I'm not picking on the maker. I'm not picking on the makers of this. Just that uh, there are more things to go wrong. So if I have this,
Yeah.
first there's the battery, then there's just who knows, maybe again, I don't want to pick on the quality, but it just everything is this way. In 10 years, my beautiful monitor that just died that I invested in many, many years ago, but it's that long ago. Well, having a motor and a battery and just more things that can go wrong. That's why I carry with me all the time. For instance, I carry a very simple $30 wired remote, shutter
Mm-hmm.
release remote, because the pocket wizards could fail, or I've tried some cheap remotes. They fail right away. So I always have that backup. Um, for this, I'm going to have to keep a tripod in the car because if something goes wrong,
Yeah.
I'm going to need to still use a tripod. And so that's the only thing that kind of concerns me. For me, I might use this again for real estate because of what I mentioned is that leveling is so important, but also,
Mm-hmm.
I, at least down here in the Bay Area, I always work under near perfect conditions. So I'm not too worried about those things that you were mentioning. So for if I'm going to go shooting in the snow or something, I wouldn't choose that. I would choose a very basic, old fashioned, sturdy tripod, I think. So
Yeah.
that's mine. Like I think it sounds like a great idea. I see them on the demo using a companion iPhone app, which drives me nuts. I don't want to pair anything else with my iPhone because it's already too busy doing so many things that now I even kept my last iPhone when I upgraded at, significant expense because I want to be able to use it for all of those wireless things and to have that separation. So, do I want to spend just one more reason to spend time connecting things? No, I don't want to do that. So anyway, if it
Yeah.
works really well, I'm for it, and I'm just have my healthy skepticism. But the answer to the question is hard, maybe,
It's
pretty
a hard
likely,
maybe.
because
Yeah.
for photography equipment these days around here anyway, $400. If I get good use out of it, then okay, yeah, I, I might.
The thing that gets me is um I'm watching the demo here, and you can see the tripod leveling itself out by extending its own length, going, "Nyeh." And uh, to be absolutely honest, with when we're doing real estate, because we've got the height set for what we want to shoot, we could just walk around, pick up a tripod, and drop it down, compose it, and while we're composing it, we're leveling it at the same time. So I think I could actually be faster at leveling and composing than to have this camera level itself and then recompose, right? Like instead of waiting for it to go like we're level and then you go in and compose,
True.
I can get it
There's
all
just the
done
time. Yeah.
just when I'm composing to level it there.
Hmm. Yeah, you might be right. This could fall into that
So
category of things that sound better, sound cooler than they are. But
right, so
but again, I highly encourage it too. Plus, I think I really need a theta to hold my theta. Don't you think?
that'd be a lot of theta. Yeah,
We have that
theta
theta
squared.
360 camera that's good for like Matterport and stuff, and so we
Mm-hmm.
need a theta tripod. Everybody's using theta. All right. I don't
Yeah,
recall what theta. Do we know the meaning of theta, like the Greek? Why do people use it so much?
theta is different. No, the difference is delta. Theta is something else. There's a mathematical term
Yeah, I can't remember
for
what that
it.
is, but
No, I
comment
didn't.
below. Um,
I didn't do well with math and algebra and stuff like that.
I was in the
I couldn't.
Pi pledge class, so that one I know. But
Oh my god. Yeah. No. I just realized that I'm like I always got confused. It's like, is it a number? Is it a letter? Is it a number trying to be a letter? Is it a letter trying to be a number? It's like, oh my god. I don't know, but I guess it's woke. It's good. It's today.
it's woke. All right, we'll tell you what. Let's. What do you say What do you say we cue the music?
Are we all done?
And I think
Is
so.
that it?
Let's wrap ourselves up. Hey, we've kept everybody here like 45 minutes. Let's let them go, because if you're not, hey, listening to a podcast is a great thing to do while shooting. But
Yes. Or driving
I like to
to a
say,
shoot.
yes, exactly. I like to say, get out and shoot, and let people go to do that. But let's, thanks again, Photomatics. Hey, it's great that we got to actually have a Photomatics related topic. So that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Extra value. Thanks for sponsoring. Hey, everybody, send your questions to questions@photofocus.com. And as you can tell, we love having a link. Highly encourage. Nobody's doing it. I used to encourage to take out your smartphone, go to the voice memo app, record your question by voice, and then use that like share or send button, and then email it to questions@photofocus.com. And we'll play it on here as audio. We did that a few times, but didn't really catch on. So I'm asking again. And
You know what we need? We need a voice actress to read the questions. Like someone that sounds a whole lot sexier than us.
yeah,
What do
okay.
you think?
Should we get like an AI to read it?
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. It's like Siri, right? Every time I get Siri to do something for me, or say, I ask Siri to do something, it doesn't come out right.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, Rob,
So,
hey, and I don't. We talk about this regularly. That this is kind of a labor of love for the most part for us. So let's not make it overly complicated. We're just trying to have fun, create some value for people to, get questions answered, have some banter about the pros and cons, because my answer is going to be different than yours, and a lot of times between the two of us, we come up with a better answer than we would have either one of us. So those are kind of the reasons to do it. I don't want to make it too complicated, but if there's a cool way of having someone record those, that's fine too. If you do record a voice one, because people have told me, oh, I get nervous and I don't sound that good. You know what? Record it once, listen to it back, delete it, and record it again, and it's gonna be 10 times better the second time. I do that kind of stuff for my own types of things. Is just that the second time through is always 10 times better.
Yeah, I remember doing that when we had to record our voicemails. Do people still use voicemails? Anyways, we're getting off topic.
Rarely.
We should end this. Let's stop it now.
Adios, everybody. See you for the round table in a couple weeks.
Bye.